Welcome to a webinar on Civil 3D and Revit with Collaborate Pro workflows. We've got a webinar that's jam-packed with Civil, Revit, ACC platforms as well. Just before we start, just like to go through a bit of an introduction about myself. My name is Bettool Jabur, and I'm a Chartered Architectural Technologist by trade, working within the sector of architecture and engineering within stadium design, schools, and residential work as well. Within Symmetry, I'm a senior consultant and technical lead on BIM 360 and ACC platforms. So in terms of the neighboring software such as Revit and Navigate, which is some of our own technologies, my main focus is to drive consultancy through collaboration and coordination within companies and how we can get the industry talking together within a single environment. Okay, so the agenda for today is to basically, first of all, we'll go through introductions and then what is Collaborate Pro. So we're going to be looking at Collaborate Pro in a bit more detail and in a bit more detail in terms of workflows. So looking at Civil 3D and how Civil 3D talks to Civil 3D and ACC and bringing in the Revit components as well. So we're not just looking at a single discipline here. We're looking at several disciplines and bringing them together within a single source document repository system and collaboration system that allows us to coordinate and review clashes within it as well. So we're going to be looking at some workflows that's been created by some workflow demonstrations that's been created by my colleague Dave Bosworth, who will be showing a demonstration of how the Civil 3D side of things work for them. And then we'll be going through the Revit side of things and how the architectural side of things can pick out the other disciplines that we're bringing in and how we can have a look at workflows and streamlining those workflows. We'll then be looking at just summarizing all of that within ACC platforms and how we can help you, how Symmetry can help you within your companies and organizations to kind of make the right decision in terms of what it is that you want to deploy or have a look at to streamline and make your working processes more efficient. Okay, so let's dive into the Autodesk Collaborate Pro and what that means to us. So in terms of the software package and what you receive, you have document management within Collaborate Pro. So document management, being able to host your data within the cloud environment. You'll be able to utilize the design collaboration module, which means that we get, Revit to talk to Revit, synchronizing our models or Civil 3D or Plan 3D. And we can also have a model coordination space where models are placed within a location on ACC and then they will automatically kind of take out and extract out any clashes within that particular space. So whenever the model's updated, we'll be able to see an update in terms of the reports and feedback that we'll be receiving from the software. We'll be taking a look at that a bit later on in this presentation. What we also get with Collaborate Pro is access to the Construction Cloud platform. So we can host our data within ACC platform, or we can host our data within the BIM 360 platform, which might be what you'll be more familiar with as it's an older platform. And you get insight into your entire account, into your entire hub. You get some feedback and executive level feedback to look at metrics and to look at risks and assessments as well within your projects, within your practice. But the platform that we'll be looking at today is the ACC platform. So just looking at the bottom of the screen there, we have https acc.autodesk.com is the link that we're referring to when we're going through this presentation today. Okay, so Autodesk Construction Cloud, if it's new to you, what does it actually mean? Well, we're talking about co-authoring models. We're talking about reducing embodied carbon. We're talking about maximizing prefabrication elements. We're looking at the entire construction process, right from the brief through to demolition. We're looking at how we can hand over our models and from party to party in a more streamlined effect, and reducing down bottlenecks as well. So we're reducing wastage and repetition within our projects. So we just really want to focus on the design and the output of our projects whenever we're working through it. So we're talking about collaboration, document management. There's lots of document management features within this, and governance in terms of how we want to manage and make sure that the standards are being adhered to within our shareable platform, if you like. So Civil 3D workflows with ACC, diving into the deep end with a demonstration by my colleague Dave Bosworth. Before we dive into that, it's good to just understand what workflows are going to be explored within there. So what Dave is going to be showing and demonstrating within his piece of Civil 3D and ACC is how we can create a topo surface model of an existing site within a DWG format, but then creating data shortcuts which are hosted now within the ACC remit. So we're not hosting this within a server, within an office. We're now able to access this anywhere in the world. So we just need access to that ACC platform in order to do that. So once that's been set up, we then go through to a second workflow of saving the topo surface model, again, back to the ACC platform, and creating surface data shortcuts to the ACC platform. We can have multiple data shortcuts if we needed to for highways and drainage, etc. So it takes us through to that final box there at the bottom of this slide where it says creating design models to save on ACC. So we can have it for roads or car parks or drainage, and the example that we'll see shortly will house some of those factors in there. And from that, we can then be able to consume information because we've got this shared location now. The civil engineers can consume the information from the architects or from the structures or from any other discipline from within that location in ACC. So consuming the model, for example, the example that's going to be shown in this next video here will be with regards to ACC data shortcut creation for consuming an existing ground floor that the architect has produced. And then we're going to progress the design and save that file within our work in progress area. Now, in ACC, every single discipline can have their own work in progress area, where their work is constantly being developed and design is constantly being improved. We can then share that data shortcut with the other parties, and then we can have a look at the ACC workflows and how we can consume that data. So we're talking about design, save, and share. That's our main process here. We're designing in Civil 3D, we're saving that information in ACC, and then we're sharing that information in ACC to then be consumed by other parties in their software. Okay, so this next presentation is going to be a demonstration by Dave Bosworth, who is going to go through a technical dive into workflows into a more detailed level.
I'm now going to show you the process for sharing Civil 3D model information using BIM Collaborate Pro, and for enabling us to collaborate with other design teams such as the architects and structural design teams to share information. In this model, this will be my existing conditions model. I've called this drawing EG surface. It's the existing ground surface. You can see I've created the surface already from topographical survey information which I've imported. So there's my ground model. And that's all that's going to be in this particular design file. I'm also going to use this model file to set the coordinates of the Revit building location, and we're going to share this information with the architects so that they can set up their shared coordinate system in Revit. Now, before I do anything else, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to save this model in BIM Collaborate Pro in the Civil Engineers design space. So here you can see we're in Docs, and you can see this work in progress area, and we have folders for each discipline. So here we are for Civil Engineer. In the incoming folder, I've got some information that I've already brought in from the architects. I've got the floor plan that you saw in my drawing, and I've got the Revit architectural model. Here I have a models folder and I've got a 3D folder where my Civil 3D models will be saved, and that's the location where I'm going to first save my drawing. So at the moment this is saved locally on my C drive, so I'm just going to save as, and I'm going to place this model in my BIM 360 project. Go to my tenant, here's my project. In the project files area, here we've got work in progress, civil engineer, discipline folder, models, 3D, and I'm going to save my drawing in this 3D folder. I'm just going to leave the name as e.g. surface, but obviously you could give it a proper drawing number. So let's just click save, and this will save the file in that folder, and you can see that it's just synchronizing now in Docs. So to be able to share this surface as a Civil 3D object in other Civil 3D design models, I need to set up a data shortcut project within the Docs area. So at the moment you'll see in Prospector my data shortcuts project is set to my local C drive, and that's obviously not the location that I want. So the first thing I will need to do, having saved the drawing, is set the working folder for my data shortcuts. So I'm going to set the working folder, and that is going to be in Docs, pick my project, in the project files. Now the working folder I'm going to set to S0 WIP, and I'm doing that because I want my project to be the C-Civil Engineer folder. So having set the working folder, I'm then going to create a new Data Shortcuts project folder, and I'm going to, for the name, I'm going to use the name of the folder that already exists. I'm going to just copy that. So this is the name of the folder, C-Civil Engineer. That will be my project. Okay, and I'm just going to click OK. And that will set my data shortcut project, and you can see it's now set up in Docs. In my tenant, there's my project, and the project is C-Civil Engineer. Now what that has done back in Docs is that if I go to the Civil Engineer folder, you'll see that it's created my data shortcuts folder under C Civil Engineer. So this is keeping my data shortcuts contained within my own working space as a civil engineer, and that's how we're going to share our objects in Civil 3D. So once I've set up the Civil 3D project, I can then create my data shortcut. So I'm going to tell it to create a data shortcut. I want to share the existing ground surface, and you'll notice it's telling me the drawings associated with that project. And I'm just going to save the drawing just to make sure that that information is saved. When I go back into Docs, in my shortcuts folder, what we should then see is it starts populating it with the link that I've just created for my surface. And you'll see in the surfaces folder here, this is the data shortcut link to that existing ground surface. So now that I have created my project and I've already saved a reference to the surface, I can now think about creating my design. So I'm going to create a new drawing, and I'm going to save this drawing straight away in Docs. So if I do save as, I'm going to put it again in my 3D folder, and I'm going to call this Site Design. So let's save that. Now once I've saved that file in my project path, I can then consume data shortcuts. So using my data shortcuts project here, I'm going to select the existing ground, right click and tell it to create a reference to it. I can set a style for this, so let's just choose a surface style, and then I'm going to just zoom extents, and you'll see the surface is now referenced into my site design model. This drawing now is also associated with the project. Now you may notice on this surface that I've got a lot of contours in this area here where actually I have no topographical survey information. So actually the surface isn't quite right. So what I'm going to demonstrate now is how these objects are linked together through the data shortcut project. So if I just skip back to my existing ground surface model, what I want to do is just get rid of this area here, and I can do that just by applying a boundary. So I've already got the boundary set up. I'm just going to turn it on. So in this surface, I'm just going to tell it to turn back on the boundary, and let's rebuild the surface. You can see it's got rid of all those triangles in this area here, and the contours have disappeared. Now I'm going to save that surface. So I'm saving it back into Docs, and that's saving the drawing file, but it's also going to update the data shortcut link. So what will happen is that when I switch back to the site design folder, it will give me a notification that tells me that the surface has changed. So now if I switch back to the site design drawing, you will see that I get a notification. It tells me that data shortcut definitions may have changed. Let's synchronize. So this is now going to read the updated surface from the EG surface drawing in Docs, and the surface will update. So that's demonstrating how we can share Civil 3D objects using BIM Collaborate Pro, and having created our Civil 3D project in BIM Collaborate Pro and sharing objects across the design team across different design models. So in the existing ground surface model, I've positioned the Revit building, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to export that reference for the architect. So I'm using this utility Autodesk Shared Reference Point. Let's execute that. Now the origin point is going to be this grid line J1, so I'm going to select the intersection there, and the north direction will be this grid line 1, so I'm going to select my second point on the end of grid line 1, and that will create an XML file. Click OK and accept that, and I'm going to save this in the project, and I'm going to place it in my models 3D folder, and I'm just going to call this Revit Shared Reference Point. So that's just an XML file that the architects can use to set the shared coordinates in their Revit model. I've now progressed my site design, and I have created a platform for the building to sit on with some grading back to the existing ground, and I've put in a road and a car parking area, and I've joined all these different gradings together as a new surface called finished ground. So you can see the surface here, and what I want to do now is I want to share this surface for the Revit users to be able to add that, link it in as a topo surface into their Revit model. So I've saved the file in Docs, and on the Collaborate ribbon in Civil 3D I can tell it to publish surface, and we can then select which surfaces we want to publish. I only want to publish the finished ground, and this is going to go in my models 3D folder, and you'll notice it's going to call it finished ground.shared DWG. So let's OK that and save that surface so that the architectural team can use that in their Revit model. And then I'm going to create some data shortcuts for the objects I've created in this drawing. So I'm now just going to tell it to create some data shortcuts, and I'm going to share all of the objects, the finished ground surface, my alignments, and the design corridors that I've created, so that I can add them to other Civil 3D models as we progress the civil engineering design. So back in Docs now, under my shortcuts, you can see that we will have additional folders to store the extra data shortcuts that I've just created, so the corridors, alignments and profiles, and the surfaces, so that I can share those in other Civil 3D models. I've now created an additional model for the drainage design, and we can also share this in our project. So we can view the networks here, and we can see the the pipe network drainage design, and I can save that into my civil engineering work in progress area. And again, to progress the design, we can create data shortcuts for the drainage objects, and I'm just going to share the pipe networks. So I'm now ready to share these design files with the architectural team and the structures team. So I'm going to switch to the design collaboration module, and we can view the swim lanes for each discipline. So here we have the civil engineer, and if I want to create a new package to share, I can just click on the plus icon here, and we can choose which models we want to share. So I'm going to share all of these, and I'm also going to share my Revit shared reference point as well, and I'm going to save that selection, and after I've saved the selection I can then share that package. And the architects can then consume that package and review those models.
That kind of concludes the end of that video, and where it takes us into the Civil 3D, ACC and Revit side of things now. So the Civil 3D and creating the topo surface and the documentation that the architect needed is now available to us in ACC. So let's just take a recap then of that, of what has happened within that process. In a nutshell, within Civil 3D, we've got a model that has been created and a DWG that has been brought into the Civil 3D platform from a Revit model. So a DWG was extracted from Revit and brought into Civil 3D. From there then, for coordination purposes, the Civil 3D model needed to be extracted within an XML file. So we had a coordination XML file that was produced in order for us to be able to see the set of shared coordinates within Revit. So in order for us to have the model in exactly the same location as where we'd expect it to be within the different disciplines within the different software. So what happened in Civil 3D then was a shared surface was then created. All of that information was then captured and published and packaged within the ACC platform, so our common data environment platform. We then have a document management system. So in Docs, we have a review of the model, so we can review it, we can see what's happened, what's changed. Within a traffic light system, we can pick out items that's happened and changed. And then what we can do is we can have a look at the Collaborate Pro feature where we can add disciplines, we can add teams to our swim lane, and we can create a package from that. So the package housing all of the data that has been produced at this stage, either from the Civil 3D perspective or even from the Revit perspective, as information is being exchanged back and forth. Then within the Revit side of things, we can go in and consume that information. So as the architect in this example, I could go in and take on board anything that the Civil 3D have created within their package, and I can import that shared coordinate, and I can now have my model in exactly the same location as where it should be in world coordinates. So the workflow within Revit will be in ACCs to consume the Civils package, then go into the location and make sure that the new location is set to the XML file that was brought in from the Civil 3D, and then we can go in and link the topo surface from the Civil 3D package from ACC where that data is actually housed. So let's just take a bit of a deep dive then into how that works within the Revit side of things. So over here as the architect, I want to go ahead and bring in and consume the information that's being created by the Civil 3D. So I go ahead and consume it. I can either show changes if this is the second or third time that the package is being created. I can explore it, but in this case, I'm just going to consume it, which takes it into my own incoming area. So let's take a look at going back into Docs and seeing what happens in Docs. So in Docs, in my own WIP area, so in work in progress. I can go into my architects folder and I can have a look at my incoming folder, which now houses a civil engineering platform in there. So it houses a folder for them. And that's where all of that data has now come in from. And I can go ahead and utilize that data, download it, explore it, and even have a look at the versions to make sure that we've got the correct versions in there. Okay, so in terms of the Revit side of things, I need to now go in and basically link my topo surface. What I need to do is speak with the ACC site via my Revit itself. And so we can see I found the Berry School project. I can go into find the models that were set out for coordination or which is shared with me. And I can go ahead and pick in the civil engineers models folder, and I can find my finished surface and bring that on board, and we can then see the information shown within the 3D environment as well, and to see how the site is actually fitting in with the Revit model itself. Okay, so Revit to Revit then, using ACC as the cloud management solution for us here. Within Revit, we can create a central model that houses all of that data within the cloud, within ACC. In ACC, we can review the models, we can add discipline teams, or we can create packages, similar to what we've seen from the civil perspective. Then another Revit user can continue to work on developing the design. We can constantly synchronize within a team rather than just working solely on a project or on an area of a project. And we can publish the latest information when it's ready to be used by the wider team on ACC. Again, is a similar process as what we've seen with what Dave had shown us in his video. So model coordination then and ACC platforms, how does that work? So in this example, what we have is, again, going back to our example with Dave Bosworth and the models that we were looking at, we have got a folder structure that houses an area that we have a coordination space. So any models within that coordination space can then be read against each other if we're looking at a model coordination. So automatically what will happen in the background is that clashes will be created, clash detection will be created, we'll create a report, and in here, for example, we can see there's two clashes. There's one here with the pile cap and the structure, and we can create an issue for that if needed. And we can also see there's one here with the pipe and the pile. So we have got coordination within our ACC space. So everything is housed within the same location. We've got the models, we've got the data, and we've got any issues that has been created. So any problems that have been created and flagged up for the wider team to see. Okay, so let's look at that then in a bit of a summary of coordination and how clash detection worked. Autodesk BIM Collaborate Pro houses this model coordination module within it, and what it allows you to do is automatically detect any clashes with models that are being published or updated. We also have grouping clashes by object. So as we could see, it was picking out the piles, it was picking out the objects, so the pipes as well. And we can create and assign coordination issues. So as soon as we find a clash, what do we do with that clash? We don't want it to just sit there. We want to be able to push that onto the correct person or team who can then take on board that clash and the issues and investigate why that's happened, and then coordinate in order for us to reduce waste when we get onto site. And so then we'll have less clashes when we get onto site as well. So we're looking at involving the entire project team within this as well. So, looking at clashing groups and coordination and issue management as well within this process. So Revit and ACC workflows in summary then. What we have here is just a Revit model that we want to publish our information. So this is just looking at things from a summary point of view from the Revit side. So we've got a set of information that we want to save and push into the cloud. We then synchronize that information with the ACC platform. Once that synchronization takes place, that doesn't normally change the versioning within the cloud. We need to consciously push this information up by publishing that latest information. Once that information is published within our work in progress area, we now need to create a package in order for this to be within a shared environment for the rest of the team to be able to see. And so we have got, all of the information that we've now pushed in from Revit into ACC, and we can save that information and we can choose to share that with the wider team. Once you share that, the other teams will then be able to consume it as what we've consumed previously within the presentation. We can see the traffic light system. So, green's been added, red's been removed, and amber's been modified, which then takes us into the coordination space. We can go in and we can see the different models that are clashing, and we can filter out to say which models. And then here we can see the clashes, investigate the clashes, create any issues, assign it to the team that needs to look at those issues. And once those issues have been assigned to the teams or to the users, we can then put a time frame on it in order for us to extract out the information as and when we need it, and have a look at what the problems are and resolve those issues. Once those issues have been resolved, we can then publish our latest models with the correct items to reduce the clashes. And likewise, we can then keep on going in and recycling, if you like, by exploring changes, by consuming and by seeing any changes, and then taking a look at answering and closing out our issues and problems before anything gets onto site, really. Okay, so again, just a bit of a summary of what we've just seen there. We're looking at publishing information from Revit. We're looking at creating a package in the Autodesk Collaborate, utilizing our Autodesk Collaborate Pro licenses within the ACC platform. And we looked at showing changes and consuming the model. We then looked at Autodesk Coordinate, so how we can have all of our models in the same location and reporting out to us what the clashes are, and for us to then go through the process of redesign in order to reduce those clashes. And creating issues. So how is it we can flag up these problems to the parties without them getting lost in emails and phone calls and little bits of notes on pieces of paper? We want to make sure that everything is captured within the same location. Okay, so that was a summary of Civil 3D with Revit workflows. But what we're going to run through now is just how can we help you with that process, and what value can we offer your business and requirements within your company. So from what you've seen there, there's a lot of integration between myself and my colleague Dave Bosworth in order to bring out this presentation of workflows for you within two different software. But we have a team of experts, we have a team of consultants who have specific knowledge areas that are very good in terms of coordinating those knowledge areas into other disciplines to make sure that there's no kind of silos, communication silos between the teams. So we can take a look, we can have a look at knowledge gaps and see how we can help you kind of make the most of efficient working, more efficient processes. So we can take a look at your structure and your governance to make sure that the software and workflow that you use are actually compatible with each other, and they work with each other in the way that you want them to, by reducing time on the processes and just making sure that it's the design and the things that we like to do at the end of the day that we get to do. So we can help you with the processes and workflows if needed, and we can have a look at configuring your ACC platforms as well if you want, the starter, the boost in getting your designs working seamlessly. So we can help you out with configuring your BIM 360 or ACC software as well. But we can always look at continuous improvement. So, taking it in steps is to see how we can help you within your journey and along your journey. This is some of our ACC BIM 360 team, and we've got a team of experts ranging from if you're looking at something, exploring something, or whether it's support, or whether you're looking at consultancy. And so these are part of our team who are key users in terms of developing and configuring and deploying ACC within your network, within your organization. So what else do we offer is Symmetry. We've got e-learning packages. So if you're looking at learning this platform from afar within within Pinnacle, then you can utilize a Pinnacle series of where we've got lots of videos and documentation that can help you pick up information. We've also got consultancy with our expert trainers and consultants and support team. And we've also got template creation, so we can have a look and review your templates and a health check of those. We can have a look at how we can support you, whether it's picking up the phone or with an email. But what we also do is success management and how we can actually help your team getting the most to get the most out of your projects and your packages as well. But if none of the standard things work for you and you like to look and think outside the box, then we've got enterprise development as well. So where we can help you look at software, but within a greater remit. So we've also got the enterprise development that can help you as well. So in summary of today then, we've had a look at Collaborate Pro within the ACC sector, within the ACC platform, so Autodesk Construction Cloud platform, and we looked at Civil 3D and how we can get Civil 3D information from one location to come through right the way through into Revit, and then having a coordinated model within the ACC platform, extracting out any clashes that was needed, and reviewing the processes that happen along the way as well, in terms of creating packages, consuming packages, creating surfaces, bringing in XML files, and how we can import in a link topo into our projects within a Revit environment. We've also had a look at how Symmetry can assist you, just a brief overview of the services that we offer, and that takes us through to FAQs. So any common questions that you might have, any questions that you might have coming out of this webinar, then please feel free to write those questions or get in contact with us with regards to this webinar. So thank you very much for taking the time out of your day to listen into our webinar this afternoon. And I'd also like to thank my colleague Dave Bosworth, who I've done a lot of work with in order to bring this presentation and workflows to make sure that it's streamlined for you within today's webinar and presentation. So thank you very much, everyone, and hope you have a good day.